Hello friends, my name is Maureen, and is she talking about critical reading again? Yes, she is. I'm so sorry, please watch this video. I've mentioned before that on the rare occasion that I get a comment on this channel that gets under my skin, it's something in the vein of, ugh, does she even like anything? Does she even like reading? Also, this conversation about critical reading is one that gets recycled pretty regularly in the book community, like on a schedule almost. Both of these things and the discourse in general is set up to present this false dichotomy, either reading critically or reading for enjoyment. It presents this argument in a way that what we end up with is critical readers looking down their nose because you can't just enjoy something that's bad, and enjoyment readers shoot back and say, well, at least I enjoy reading, and like none of this is how any of this works. And I should clarify that for this video and moving forward, we're talking about like taste and enjoyment things and quality things, which are all subjective, and not like this book is racist. In which case, I feel like that is like a whole separate conversation about how we listen to the people who are harmed and take that into consideration and what we promote and what we give money to and all of that. So let's start with this. Critical reading is when you take a text and you dive a little bit deeper than face value in order to better understand the text. Critical reading is like the process by which we analyze or engage with a text, and that is related to but not exactly being critical or a critical review. Once you've read a text critically, you can, if you are so inclined, present a review of it, and that pairs your analysis of the text with your enjoyment and your opinion of it. What is the author saying, and do I agree with the message, or do I think it was effectively done? What sort of language is used, and did I enjoy it? How are the characters employed, and did I like them? How's the world built, and did I enjoy it? For many of us, enjoyment is a key part of the review, and it certainly is for me. It definitely isn't all of it, but it is something that I factor in. We talked about this a lot when we dedicated a podcast episode to each of the books in the A Song of Ice and Fire series, and we talked about how there were like characters we absolutely loved, and it was just impressive, the size and the scope of what George R.R. Martin has created. But were we enjoying reading this? A recent example of a book that I thought was excellently written and constructed, but I didn't necessarily have a fun time reading it, was The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mendel. I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. On the flip side, a book that had like 2 or 3 construction things that were just very glaringly obvious to me, but that I enjoyed the heck out of reading, was Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson, and I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. Enjoyment is part of how I rate and review. Please stop asking me if I enjoy things. I mean, apart from it annoying me personally, it also isn't like a great narrative to push in the community that you either enjoy the things you read or you pay attention to them. And not only that, but it gives way to this idea that this is a yes-no thing. Like, are you reading critically? Yes or no? When there are degrees to how closely you can read a text, like I'm not writing a thesis on every book that I read. I'm not even annotating or taking notes on every book that I read. I generally consider myself somebody who consumes media critically. However, how deep I dive into a work varies from work to work. So the question of like critical reading is almost separate from this other thing, which is reviews in the booktube community. The latest round of this on Twitter made me realize that I've always seen booktube as a community of book reviewers, but maybe that's not quite accurate. By its very nature and definition, a review evaluates a work. It asks not only did I like this, but why? Not only did I think this was good, but why? I saw a good amount of tweets from people that basically were saying that they have no interest in reviewing. They don't want to engage with evaluating a work or communicating their whys, their feelings or their opinions on a book, which is totally valid, and not because I say so as any kind of authority, but because it is. BookTube has more to offer than just reviews. Now, I hope that this next part isn't super controversial, but I think in the shuffle of this conversation, what we sometimes lose is that many of us having this conversation are people who are on platforms and make things for other people to consume. Something that I write that is just for me, a journal or a to-do list. It is something that only I have to understand, only I will ever see. Like, I have to worry none about communicating anything to anybody else because those things are just for me. The moment that I engage one other person in what I'm saying or writing, I start to consider that one other person. Even in something like a conversation with my best friend, we are comfortable with each other, we converse easily, we have a shorthand, and I probably think about things less that I say to her than I say to a stranger. And yet, even in communicating with her, I am trying to communicate in a way that she will understand me. And if she doesn't understand something and she's like, huh, then I rearrange and make myself understood to her, because the whole point is that I want to have this conversation. For a lot of us, when we start booktube, we do so as a hobby. And so in that regard, we are doing it for ourselves. And at the very beginning, nobody is watching, or very few people are watching. So it's very easy to continue to make this or exist in this space where we think, I am doing this for me. I just personally think that something that you are making for an audience to consume isn't just for you at that point. You have to start considering them. Saying something like, I don't care if my star ratings don't make sense or if my reviews aren't helpful, that's strange to me, because then who are you communicating to? If you only care about you understanding, then why are you putting it up for consumption? Don't get me wrong, I make things here and the person's approval that matters the most is my own. I make things here that I enjoy. I make things here that I am proud of. However, when I make them, I try to consider who I'm speaking to and if I'm making myself clear and if I'm putting something out there that is helpful to people, and maybe not to everyone because that's also impossible, but are there some people out there that can get some use or entertainment from what I'm putting out there for consumption? I can 100% read a book and have absolutely no coherent thoughts about it, but if I wanted to share that with you, I would have to make my thoughts coherent. There's definitely another extreme that you could head into, trying to make everything super precise and scientific, and you almost forget that all of this is subjective, and my opinions or assessment of a book, my enjoyment of it, like all of that is subjective. But when you get too far into like, oh, you know, I gotta make this perfect and the best, you start thinking that your opinions are objective, your reviews are objective. Somewhere in the middle is a happy medium. At my best and my healthiest, I am creating things that I am proud of, that I am happy with, and I am also keeping my audience in mind, knowing that my goal in putting this somewhere where people can see it is for people to understand it and engage with it. Another healthy thing for me personally, and I had to learn that even though I create stuff based on media, not all media that I consume I have to make something about or say something about. This is probably like a newer thing. If you go back and you listen to episodes of Snark Squad Pod, especially the ones that we do at the end of the year, we always have a segment where we're like, what did we watch or read or whatnot that wasn't for Snark Squad or wasn't for content? And basically my answer was like, LOL, what is consuming media not for content? But I think that in isolation during this time, I've really realized that sometimes media is just for me and I don't have anything to say about it, and I don't want to say anything about it. I said earlier that I generally consider myself a critical consumer of media, but there are times that I consume something and I'm like, I have no desire to engage with that any further. And that is absolutely okay, and I don't talk about those things online. Sometimes I don't even mark them as read on Goodreads because that is also forward facing, and I don't have a star rating, I don't have a review, I don't have anything to add about the experience that I just consumed. That was truly just for me. It's nice to keep some things for myself and to give myself some breathing room so that I don't feel the pressure to have something to say about everything. I think most of us have media that we consume brain off, so books that we binge or TV shows that we put on in the background or movies that sit in our trash pocket. Like, yes, me too. However, if you will just let me do my little plug here, I don't know if you can tell that this is something that I'm very passionate about. In fact, my degree was in communications, media, and society, so the way that those three things intersect, it is really important to consume things critically. Media is this giant piece of how we engage with society. It is part of how we learn and socialize. It touches so many facets of our lives, and it is worth it to contend with its intent and impact. We should be asking questions of our media and not just lying down and taking whatever it gives us. Yes, you can read any way that you want, but that was my little plea right there. Even if it has nothing to do with the content that you intend to make, for you personally, as a human being, critically consume your media. I think part of the reason that this conversation kind of cycles around in booktube is that we all have different tastes in what we enjoy watching in booktube and the sorts of reviews that we enjoy or that are most useful to us. There are people whose reviews and taste I really trust because they like what I like and they dislike what I dislike, or they have really well thought out and varied reviews. Those are the people that I turn to for recommendations, specifically if I intend to spend money. There are reviewers that I find hilarious and entertaining and smart and that I absolutely disagree with. In fact, in like my top 5 comments that I get on this channel, it's like usually like, wow, what a great review. You know, I understand all of your reasons. I absolutely disagree with you, which, you know, that's amazing. There are people that I follow on here that never post a review, and it's all okay. Talking about what kind of reviews you like or what kind of reviews you find helpful, none of that invalidates other content, especially if we are talking about it generally and respectfully. And I guess that's one of my takeaways. So takeaways, here we go. It's not enjoying reading or critically consuming. Critical does not mean negative, and it does not necessarily mean not enjoying the things that you are consuming. Not everything on BookTube is a review, but a review by its very nature is an evaluation and analysis of a work. When you create on a platform, you create for other people, and your outward-facing content should have some value for some audience. Reviews are meant to be of value to others. It's important to consume media critically, but I don't know. Do literally whatever you want, and we'll probably have this conversation again in a few months. Okay, so let's hear it. Did you catch this latest round of talking about critical versus enjoyment? What do you think? What sorts of reviews are valuable to you? Do you consider yourself a critical reader? Let's chat about all of this down in the comments, and thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you guys soon. We talked about this a lot when we dedicated a podcast episode. Is it worth it? And not only that, but it gives way to this idea that this is a yes, no. Doing a roll.